Paper of the evening is someone we've heard from a lot throughout the last 4 days. His name is Matteo B.Scianna. Am I pronouncing that right?
Yes.
And he is a master's student at Columbia and the London School of Economics studying international history. Is that correct? Yes. I don't have all the details with me right now, but I believe from memory that is correct. And his presentation is entitled, "It's Smart Defense, Stupid, the European Common Security and Defense Policy." So please let's welcome Matteo B.Scianna.
All right, thank you for the introduction. I cut it short, really cutting it short. But something, I just sitting there seeing the stage, something is wrong. I think the main player is missing. If you look, the European Union is standing alone, standing aside when world history is written. But it'll be okay. I'll start off taking you somehow through history of the European Union really quickly. We're having the Cold War. You have a bipolar world. Europe is the front line in an ideological conflict and a geopolitical conflict. You have the US putting in troops, staying in Europe, staying in Germany. You have the Soviet Union doing the same from the other side. So we heard that the European Defense Union in the 50s failed miserably. This was about conventional forces being built up to wage a conventional war against the Warsaw Pact. Europeans, or put it this way, the American armament and the continuing arms race led to a European disarmament because it was all fine. You had the US security umbrella, Europeans were fine off, and you could just relax and let the Americans do the job. We were prosperous, we were developing the European Union, the European Community before, from coal and steel pacts. So we're talking about the Europeans introduced the rule of law. We're having institutions, we're having cultural diplomacy in its early forms, being very peaceful. It was somehow the threat of nuclear war, yes, but we're an island of happiness. There was no war. Looking back 200 years, we are slaughtering each other every single year, more or less. So this ends in 1990, 1991, downfall of the Soviet Union. And then we have the 90s, which is a complete new field and a complete new time when you have the idea of intensive peacekeeping. So you have peacekeeping forces. You have in essence the irregular war, unconventional warfare makes its return to the front line and the front pages of the newspapers. This means I cut the 90s. We're going to 9/11. Afterwards, the US is going in Afghanistan, and NATO is for the first time actually invoking Article 5. Coalition is going to Afghanistan. The US and some willing states are going to Iraq. And what we learn is the NATO approach towards these conflicts is too heavy-handed. David Petraeus said, you can't kill your way out. So what else do? You have hearts and minds is often misunderstood as an attempt to be liked. It's not that they like you, it's just that they somehow accept that you're not trying to harm them, but you're trying to cooperate. So NATO, and this is when Joe Nye, I think it's 2003 or 2004, when he comes out with soft power and the whole, I think it's a kind of I'm a historian seeing it from a historical perspective, sort of a backlash to Bush and to mission accomplished and to coalition of the willing, axis of evil. Let's put it in a cultural way, like don't we need soft power, don't we want to attract these people to follow us, and don't we just want to threat them and bomb them and shell them? So NATO is having a hard time, and I was thinking about that for a long time, and you have the US turning to the Pacific. It's a new century, it's the Asian century. I don't want to talk about the decline of the US and all the talk about China and US if they clash. I think that's another topic. But Europeans and NATO had that common sense that you need to be more efficient. And it was called pooling and sharing. The European Union was a bit faster than NATO with adopting that principle. But we have these political problems. There's a necessity of the impossible in the European Union. You have 27 opinions. We talk a lot. I don't know if Kissinger knows whom to call now in Europe. I hope he has some numbers. But we know that we are on our way. What I'm arguing for is the European Union has more soft power appeal and capabilities than NATO. and can actually act as a regional power. I'm not talking that the European Union will ever make its way to deter Russia or China or whoever will rise, but we can solve regional conflicts in our neighborhood. We have the diplomatic ties, we have the economic ties with them, the cultural ties, and if Europeans get rid of that Cold War thinking of the US security umbrella, we can actually form up a sort of hard power to convert it to real power, which means smart power in Joe Nye's concept. And this means, my example in the paper, cut it short, it's the European battle groups. Who's familiar, it's jointly every 6 months some European member states form brigades, and they have a high operational readiness status. Means they can be deployed to any part of the world within 36 or 48 hours. And I think right now you had Estonia, Norway, and Sweden, and another brigade from Germany, Luxembourg, the Netherlands, and Belgium. How can you have more diversity and more sharing and pooling? It increases costs. I'm not going to talk about the European debt crisis. I hope you're not going to ask me about it. Being a European studying in the US, it's kind of enough now. It saves money. For every single state. You can also what NATO is doing. You share and you pool, but NATO is a military organization. I think, coming back to the talk we had before, if you say it's sort of a collective security organization and an alliance, why not include Russia if it's only against collective? If it's only for collective security? We don't have the enemy, the Soviet Union anymore, so include Russia and pool and share with them. Different topic. Europe evolved to a super civilian state. A British historian, James Sheehan, called it a super civilian state. And then thinking about the US, where everyone seems to complain about rightly to some degree, about the military-industrial complex, and we have a super civilian state, and the US is shifting away now from Europe and its commitment. It's natural that the US steps up, that the European Union, steps up and takes the role that Secretary Gates, he was stating in February last year, taking the Libyan example, I quote, "The demilitarization of Europe has gone from a blessing in the 20th century to an impediment to achieving real security and lasting peace in the 21st. We should step up and help the US. Don't accuse me of Eurocentrism. I'm speaking about the European, I'm not imperialist, don't accuse me of that. But the European Union has to step up and help the US in a period where also the US have some austerity measures and have to cut expenses, have to lead the European neighborhood policies, for example, Libya, that operations like Kosovo and Libya, the US can lead from behind at least, and we cooperate as good allies. The European Common Security and Defense Policy is not meant to supplement NATO. It's not that we want the Americans to go home. It's not anti-Americanism, it's nothing about that. It's just being more effective and using the soft power tools that the European Union definitely has more than NATO to have power with others, as Joe Nye puts in his last book, which some people tend to forget reading only his first piece, focusing only on soft power. So I would say that's kind of a liberal realism, which I want to call it, and we have power through and with others.